Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of The Book of the Duchess by Geoffrey Chaucer. The Book of the Duchess is also known as The Dream of Chaucer or The Death of Blanche, and it is the first major long poem published by Geoffrey Chaucer. It is an elegy written on the death of Duchess Blanche of Lancaster, first wife of John of Gaunt, who was the fourth son of King Edward III. John of Gaunt was a patron and at some point a brother-in-law to Chaucer. The Duchess Blanche died of plague on September 12, 1368. The poem was composed sometime between 1368 and 1372, and it is generally considered to be flattering to both the Duke and the Duchess. It is written in French octosyllabic couplet, which has 8 syllables in a line, adapted from the French by Chaucer. It is a poem of the dream vision genre, which has 1334 lines. In the Book of the Duchess, the poet is introduced in the first person. He has difficulty getting to sleep and has not slept, he says, for 8 years. He reaches for a copy of a romance and reads the tale of King Sayers and Queen Alcuin. The king goes across the sea on a ship, and a storm arises and drowns all aboard. Queen Alcuin is anxious at home and awaiting his return, sends to the east and west looking for him. Until she knows the king's fate, she will not eat bread. Distraught, she prays to Juno to send her a dream that would tell her of the fate of Sayers. Juno immediately sends Alcuin to sleep, and he sends a messenger to Morpheus, the god of sleep. Morpheus is to go to the great sea, the Mediterranean, and enliven the king's drowned body with his own spirit. This reanimated corpse he should send to Alcuin to speak to her and show her he has drowned. Juno's messenger goes to the dark valley where the gods Morpheus and Clytemnestra sleep. He rouses Morpheus, who does Juno's bidding and conveys the dead Sayers to speak to his wife Alcuin. In her dream, Alcuin sees Sayers at the foot of her bed, and he tells her that he has died and that she must find his body by the sea and bury it. He also tells her not to remain in sorrow too long. He adds that she was his true love in life. With too little while our bliss lasts, he leaves her, echoing a theme of this and other poems in Chaucer's love poetry over. Alcuin awakens and Sayers is gone. The narrator now reflects how helpful it would be to have the god of sleep come and give him much needed rest himself. He describes the offerings he would make to Morpheus and to his goddess Juno, an elaborate bed of down with stripped gold and black satin and linen from Lyrinus. He would give this gift to obtain the swift and deep sleep that Alcuin did when Juno answered her prayer. The narrator then falls asleep on his book and experiences so strange and wonderful a dream that he says no one on earth can properly interpret it. Not even the famous biblical interpreter of dreams, Joseph, who read dreams for Para, nor Macrobius, the late Roman author who wrote a famous, he was during the Chaucer's day, commentary on Cicero's dream of Scipio, would have the skill to read the fantastic dream the narrator had that night. The narrator now begins recounting his dream. He thinks that it is the month of May. He hears a great number of birds singing loudly outside his window. The windows of the chamber in which he lies are stained glass, and they depict the story of the Trojan War. The walls are painted with the text and pictures of the romance of the rose. Through the window, the dreamer hears the sounds of a great many horsemen assembling for a hunt. The dreamer, in his dream, goes to his horse and joins the hunt. He asks one of the huntsmen whose hunt this is and learns that it is the Emperor Octavian's. A young dog, obviously at a loss when the deer give the hunting company the slip, approaches the narrator. The narrator follows it down a green and flowery pathway. The dreamer then describes a primeval forest of great trees, overrun with flowers, more flowers he thinks, that can be in heaven. It is filled with deer and other animals more than can be counted. There, the dreamer meets a knight dressed in black. The knight is sorrowful, and while he sits, he is composing a verse, almost a complaint, about his sorrow in love. The complaint details how his lady love, whom he loved with all my might, has been lost. When the knight has finished his song, he suffers a kind of emotional heart attack and becomes deadly pain. The knight is insensible though the narrator greets him. Finally, the knight is roused and apologizes. The sorrowing knight is courteous and the narrator endeavors to learn more about him. The narrator tries to comfort the knight, but he is inconsolable. In fact, the knight is sorrowful unto the death, for I am sorrow, and sorrow is I. The knight then begins a tirade against fortune, who turns her wheel at a whim, making him a man she has favored before into a miserable wretch. The knight describes a chess game between himself and fortune, in which fortune has tricked him and won. The dreamer hears the knight's tale of woe, and he begs the knight to remember the teachings of Socrates. Socrates taught that the philosophical man should be above the vagaries of fortune. The dreamer tries to talk the knight out of suicide by enumerating the foolish people in history who killed themselves for love and were judged harshly for it. The knight explains that he has lost more than the narrator knows, and he will tell him the story of it if he promises to hearken to it. The narrator gladly agrees. The knight says that he was an idle youth, but dedicated to the service of love, when he met a golden haired lady who surpassed all other ladies in beauty and perfection. He describes her modesty, moderation, courtesy toward all, and the general integrity of her character. The soaring Black Knight also lists her physical charms from her head downwards. The Black Knight and Lady White were married and lived in harmony for some years. The narrator agrees that this was a lovely lady, but he wonders why the Black Knight is still so upset about a game of chess. Finally, after the full explanation of the lady's worth, the knight, under questioning from the narrator, blurts out that she has died. At last, the dreamer understands and agrees that the Black Knight has indeed suffered a great loss. The hunting horn sounds, signaling the end of the hunt. The king's hunting party goes off toward a long castle, and a bell tolls 12 hours, the time allotted to the knight to tell his story. The dreamer awakens from his fantastic dream with Ovid's Metamorphosis still in his hand. He marvels at the clarity and wonder of the dream, and he decides that it is so good that it should be put into a poem. And here ends the poem. If you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the comment box. Like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe and support. Thank you.